Here we go. We are doing a
Yeah.
re-recording of our sketchbook story time for July 3rd. And it is now July 4th, but here we go again and cross our fingers that this time it will work. So welcome, Jill. Looking
Thank you.
forward to seeing your doobries and taking a look at them again.
Okay, well, this is the current challenge, okay, on the artist journey. And you asked for us to color map moods, emotions, feelings. So I thought, oh, that's easy. Not, that's hard. That's very hard. So I thought I can't just do this in isolation, and I would return to doobries, which are the little square pieces of paper that I've been painting for a year or more. And I would paint what I felt in the colors that I felt, but maybe using the shapes and the patterns that I felt as well. And what I did was to have a little piece of paper at the side, which I use as the color map. So as I painted the doobry, the pattern, I also put a sweep of color onto the color map, and then I stuck it on in the end. Okay, so I've got 7 here. They're not done on 7 different days. A couple of them were done one morning, one afternoon, because apparently my mood, my feelings, and my emotions change and go up and down and everything else. So here we go. This was the first one. So this was done on the 28th of June. You can see it's a really small piece of paper. Is that clear?
Yes, yes, it is clear. So what is the size of that paper?
Right, 4 inches.
Okay.
Square.
Okay.
And I think that's 20 centimeters. But I wrote 20 centimeters when I posted the challenge, and then I've doubted it, so I must look it up. So 4 inches, you like inches anyway, 4 inches. And the ones I'd previously been doing would cover the whole page. But this one, because I was working on this piece, which was a loose piece of paper, it's just an offcut. You know, when you trim things up, sadly, don't throw anything away. And I have these little strips of paper. So there it was. So I painted these. As I put paint on there, I put paint on there. And I thought, I'm going to stick it on. So it really became part of the design in each one of them. Another confusion to this was, although I'm meant to be mapping my emotions through colour, I just had some new paints from Tansy Hagen. So like a kid at Christmas with new toys, I had to try them out. So they're all from her palette, which is quite a broad palette, but I guess it did alter things. So this one on the 28th of June, I've written on the back what I was sort of feeling, and also I've written down the names of the pigments. And this one I've written that I felt scattered. So I don't know whether that's scattered enough. And I think, you know, sort of a few contrasting colors and a few neutrals and whatever. Okay, so that was number 1. Number 2, on the same day. Here we go.
Very different.
Yeah, different colors, different feel, different shapes. It grew in a different way. It started from that sort of turquoisey arc. And that was, I was feeling much calmer in the afternoon, less scattered, calmer. And I wanted the interlocking shapes because I felt more sort of balanced and whatever. So there we go. So that's number 2 on the same day. And then I woke up the next morning and thought, okay, feeling quite calm today. I'm going to have a go at greens, because traditionally green is meant to be calm. We had this discussion, didn't we?
Does green feel calm to you?
I find it quite annoying.
Me too.
Which is why halfway through doing this, it started, where are we? This mark here, I can see through. This mark was the first mark. And these gentle sort of curves started off, but green, I don't enjoy working with green. Although I do wear green, but I don't enjoy working with green. And I got a bit anxious and had a few sort of intrusive feelings. And so I decided to choose a really bright color and have these sharp, invasive shapes in a brighter sort of color, and then these mixed up. So here we are, there's these sort of arrow type things mucking up the calmness of the green, and then these big swoopy lines, and the bits in between I put in afterwards, which sort of calmed the whole thing down a bit. But so that's a mix of emotions, that one.
I'm seeing this again, and we did yesterday talk a lot about this and about green, and they're beautiful greens. I find that the top part where you started is very calm and harmonious. For me, neutralized greens are calming and wonderful. It's, as I mentioned, the Kelly green makes me sick.
Yeah,
I just can't handle it. And what I'm seeing now, after we talked about our own personal feelings about greens, that in this Dupree, you've really expressed that. I mean, you were dealing with greens that, because you were in a calm mood, kind of your brain intellectually, you thought perhaps that, okay, green is supposed to be serene, etc. What we hear are the attributes of the hue green. But as you were continuing, you're beginning to feel the aggravation of green.
yeah,
and you jump to really what you personally connect to more.
yeah.
And that brought in this incredible, what's the color of the pigment again?
Well, isn't it lovely? Electric cucumber.
Electric cucumber. And that is far more something that I think you are like to get away from being apart from your feeling. And then just the whole frustration or aggravation of this is a challenging experience.
Yeah.
What are you feeling then?
Yeah.
So I think this is a very, very valuable piece, because it brings you back to saying, okay, well, forget what the world says is a calming color. What makes me feel serene and calm? And
not these.
No, and in your previous one that felt extremely calm, wonderful, like that, even though there are a lot of different colors, almost like a gaiety, it still feels far more serene than those, than the combination of greens.
It's more harmonious, isn't it?
It is. And isn't that interesting? And I think that your other one, the one with the cucumber coming in there, that's what all
Electric cucumber.
Electric cucumber. It's such a gorgeous color. I need to have that pigment, but it is in complete conflict with the neutralized olivey greens on the top. And what I find fascinating is you tied it all together with the sharpness, not so much with color, but with the sharp shapes and the dark contrast of the darker lines. And you've pulled it off. Whereas there's so many paintings I've seen where people throw Viridian green in, which is kind of like that. And It's not mixed with anything else. And to use pure Viridian green, it needs to be part of an overall color scheme or it jumps out as a bruise.
Yeah.
And here you have a pointy arrow-shaped object, an electric cucumber, and you're able to harmonize it with everything else through your sharpness shapes.
It's interesting, isn't it, when you look at the little, if we call this the color map, the
Yeah.
testing strip, those colors really seem, or they seem quite different. Is that about proportions?
Yes, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And that's why at one point, and this will be explored further, color map is so different when we're just looking at the specific colors, which is important to really focus on that and not worry about anything else. And the next stage is to focus on how we use proportion, because if we're going to play around with color schemes, two color schemes, identical color schemes, will produce completely different emotions, feelings, paintings, design, depending on proportions. And that's where dominance comes in. And that's a whole other layer. You know, what is your dominant color? Let's say one of your neutrals was a dominant color.
Yeah.
That would be completely different. I think through these challenges, what I'm hoping to do is to isolate certain focus and all of those things, learn from all of it, like the fact that you jumped into a very cool saturated green from a neutralized warm green. I think, you know, it brought to mind a lot of things and you adapted to it. And based on your previous experience, I think you intuitively created shapes and were able to balance it. And I think a lot of that was intuition, which is wonderful.
Oh, yes. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And then but you do learn from it. Sometimes a lot, sometimes a
And
little.
I tell you what, it's really useful to have a time like this, talking about it and listening to you talking about it, but also considering it yourself, because although on the challenges we do write about what we've done, there's a limit to how much you can write, especially as I post mine using my phone, and the text very quickly disappears, so you can't even see what you're writing. You know, you can't read it very easily. You can, but so this is really valuable talking about it. So it would be really good if some other people could talk about theirs as well, wouldn't it? It'd be lovely.
I think so. And just for me, the experience, what you experience while you're creating these things is far more valuable than the end product.
Oh, yes. Yes.
You know, we're hopefully looking to hone tools, to find new tools, to find deeper understanding and create, you know, make it intuitive, but get closer to ourselves. Just because a lot of people think green is a great color for meditation, it doesn't mean that it works for everyone, nor does it mean that it works every day at different times. You brought up a good point that you have different moods throughout the day. Well, of course. If we color mapped morning, noon, and night, they would be completely different.
Yeah.
And then comes the question was, because you're starting with your Dubry and then taking the color and putting it onto your color map.
No. I'm mixing the color and putting it on the color map, and then
Okay.
using it
And
on
then
the
putting on the
Dubry.
Dubry. But you've already committed to that color by not using a scrap piece of paper.
Yeah, which is very unusual for me, because you know how I love my scrap pieces of paper and they are everywhere.
Yes.
But no, I didn't so much with this. I think I
So
was so concerned to get these painted in. Yeah.
that was kind of critical because you
Mm,
locked yourself into that,
mm,
whether you were, whether it connected with your current mood or not. So what that did was maybe it shifted your current mood.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yep. And
Chicken and egg.
by doing these challenges, exercises, practices, whatever you want to call them,
Mm,
being aware of that, saying, oh, okay, well, that color didn't tap into the mood I was in, but now in looking at this color, I'm feeling something a little bit different,
mm,
which is what happens when we're creating paintings. We may be in a mood, but then we make a mark or we add a color or something, and it taps into something completely different that's far more exciting than or meaningful than what we started out with.
mm.
It's really important to be flexible enough to change
Yeah, yeah,
and to not try to block what we did out, but to go with what the painting is now asking of us,
yeah, yeah.
and to be aware of that sensation, of that feeling, to know, okay, I'm shifting gears now, and I'm communicating with this debris. And for me, that's the key to my own creative process,
Mm,
is using my knowledge as much as I can, but tapping in, going back and forth between tapping into my mood, my emotion, or my intention, if
mm,
whatever it might be, but constantly being aware of what's really happening on the paper or the canvas or the board,
mm.
clay sculpture, whatever you're working with. Like children, you can have ideas of what maybe they'll grow into, but you really need to nurture what is of their own nature,
Oh, yeah,
for
yes.
them to be the best of what they can be.
Mm,
You have to tap into who they are, what they are, and
mm,
the energy that they're releasing into the world. And I often feel that a sketch, a painting, any of those things are just like that.
mm.
That you need to see where your control has to let up a little bit.
Yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah.
think that, and I thought about this last night, that issue of the greens
Mm,
illustrates that beautifully.
yeah. One of the strengths of these little Dewberry things, I mean, I must have done 35 or so now, is it just is so easy to carry around a little pile of these, and you're not committing hours and hours of work. I mean, they can take hours, but it's something, if it doesn't please you, you can forget it and not feel you've spent
Right.
hours of your life doing it, but or equally it's quite restricting, I guess, in size. Here we are later that same day, and then over to the next day, quite a different and far more me, this
Yes.
color scheme.
And
And I've
I
written
see
on
a difference in this, where I'm seeing these transparencies that I haven't seen in the Dubries before.
yeah, and yes, working on top,
Yeah.
no overlapping, yes.
And I
Yeah.
love the strip being attached
Yes.
side of it.
In each case of these, I think the strip has been an integral part of the whole.
Yeah.
Because I started the strip and then I've held it up and decided where on the four sides I wanted it. And it wasn't attached, but I would shift it backwards and forwards to see the effect.
I love that one. And
Yeah.
that too feels so much calmer and more serene, though there's movement in it and
Yeah.
joy than the
Yeah.
green one.
Yeah, that's Pretty in Pink, Duomo, and Borage. Yeah, so it's just 3 colors. Right, then, completely different. Oh, on the 30th of June. So that one was finished in the morning of the 30th. And by the afternoon, oh yeah, I'm on a roll here. So I put on the back here, control. Yes, I've got this taped. I'm okay with this. I'm in control of this. So let's have nice controlled shapes and some nice neutrals, and we'll just stick in a little bit of saturated. And so it's Crocosmia. And actually it's Rowanberry. And this one is Twilight, straight from the pan, but it's a very neutralized blue, isn't it?
It's gorgeous.
Yeah. But
And it really makes that tiny red dot sing.
yeah,
Because everything else is neutralized.
yeah.
And the variety of shapes and sizes, you have patterns and regularity, but within them, there's this wonderful playfulness of, well, you have a lot of motion in it. It's not at all stagnant.
Different sizes of mark and direction and whatever. So yeah, so that's the 30th. Right, and then this is an interesting one. We enjoyed this one. This is the 1st of July. And that was a nice, calm, balanced day, but I was up in the garden first thing in the morning, and I've got lots of trees, and it was very windy. So I chose that same color scheme that I had before, which I'd enjoyed, that one. This is the same color scheme, but different marks and a lot more overlapping of the colors. My Dewberries didn't used to do this. My thingamabobs didn't. The shapes were kept completely separate. You know, there was space in between each one and nothing bumped into anything else. But here they are, aren't they? They're bumping in.
So how did you feel when you did your first overlap? Since for a long time now, you've left that white space.
Oh, well, I felt as though I'd, what's the word? Sort of broken free.
So it was a good
from the
feeling.
Constraints of the Dewberry.
Okay, good. Because I mean, you could have either, oh my God, what have I done feeling, or a feeling of liberation.
Yeah, no, it was a feeling of liberation. And I think since I was doing the original Dewberries last year, it was mainly from March till August last year. But I've now done a lot of the automatic drawings, and a lot of the colors are now, the same thing is happening to them. They were all very separate colors within the shapes that arrived, and now they're all starting to mingle. Yeah.
Could you hold up the two from the same color scheme together so that we can see both of them? And
is that the right? Yeah, that's the right way.
I love seeing the difference between the two with the same. It's not quite, well, it is, it's interesting because the color scheme that you have in your right hand.
That one.
Yes. If you duplicated that strip, it would be the same as the one in your left hand, but in your left hand, I don't see that light, bright pink, which doesn't make any difference, but it's kind of interesting. Yeah, see that really, well, maybe
more saturated, you know, more
saturated.
saturated color.
Yeah,
perhaps.
Yeah, and to me, that too is worth looking at, contemplating, because sometimes in a painting, something we need either needs just a little bit more saturation or a little bit more neutralizing.
mm,
When you're doing these things and taking the time to learn the lessons from them, you notice how just a slight shift can make all the difference in the world.
mm.
I think we were talking about that with neutrals a little bit yesterday too, with
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
what color does that neutral tend toward a red, an orange, a blue, a green, you know, it
yeah.
may look like brown, but it's not just brown. It heads in one direction.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that makes a big difference, even though often neutrals aren't given their due when it comes to the strength of them.
Mm. I think more and more the neutrals are so important because that's what makes the other colors sing, doesn't it?
Yes.
You know?
It's like a play, you know, or a movie where the supporting actors and actresses are really what make the main actor and actress shine.
Mm, mm,
You know,
mm.
the supporting actors either bring the main characters down or exalt them. And I think neutrals are the same with hues and saturation of colors.
Yeah, yeah. That almost, you see, it almost looks as though I've got the crocosmia, the orangey color, but I know that came from tansy, which is the yellow, and old rose, which is a sort of a dusky pink. They make this beautiful bright. It's a really nice palette. That Duomo is the sort of like cobalt turquoisey. It's
That's
greener.
beautiful.
It's greener than cobalt turquoise, I think. Really, tansy is the yellow. Old rose is a really dusty pink, and then pretty in pink is a brighter pink.
Now,
So-
what is the other one that you're calling? It's a very different name. The red, what, crocosmia?
Crocosmia, which is a plant, isn't it? Crocosmia.
Is it an F?
Crocosmia. It's an annual flower. This is crocosmia. Yeah, here we go. That,
The orange.
yeah.
Okay.
In the pan, it looks red. This red is rowan berry, but this is a crocosmia, and it's a lovely color.
It is. And whose is that? Is that tansy?
This is all tansy.
Okay.
Yeah. This is the one with peppercorn, which is almost like a grey, a graphite. Caravan green, which is like green gold, which I love. Rowan berry, which is a bright red. Crocosmia, which is orange, and twilight, which is this deep.
Yeah, the twilight is beautiful.
Yeah, it's lovely.
And you said before that she mixes multiple pigments to get her.
Yes, yeah, they are her own sort of mix of what she'd like to use.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the rowan berry and there's one called School Disco, which I haven't used yet. It's bright pink.
Wow.
Then there's Byzantine, which is lovely. I love Byzantine. I had that before when I got some of her paints before, and I've used it a lot. And Electric Cucumber. They're not fully light fast.
Oh.
Because the three of them, not so much a rowan berry, but red is a difficult color anyway, isn't it, to make?
Yes. It fades the most. In fact, when back in the days when I made handmade note cards and printed images with archival inks as archival as they were possible, the red, if I had a pack of 4 cards bundled together and I did an outdoor show, after 4 hours of an outdoor show, I would go home and I would have to replace the top card because the red
was gone.
Everything else was fine. Everything else would be fine for days, for weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, it was basically archival, but it was clear to me that I didn't want to, I needed to put a warning on any giclée prints I sold,
Mm,
because if they were hung in strong sunlight, the red fades in no time.
yeah.
Notice that in groceries, well, it used to be, I don't know what they use now, but giclée was originally the digital printing for supermarket banners in their windows for advertising sales. And the red would be the first to go. So sometimes you couldn't read the price because the price. But in the sketchbook, you know, when we're learning about color and we're learning about what things do,
It doesn't matter. It doesn't
doesn't
matter.
matter because we're not sticking that out on a shelf in the sun.
No.
But it is good to know because
Yeah.
you don't really want to use that if you're also doing paintings that you're then going to exhibit or sell.
Mm, mm,
It's
mm.
important to have that knowledge,
Yeah.
but it's also important to play with all these wonderful colors that you can. And your
yeah.
sketchbook is just like a second and third and fourth brain for you.
Mm,
So
mm,
why not? You can always come up with something close to that red that's more permanent if you find that you want to mix that, or, you know,
yeah.
powerful color.
Right. Last one on the 2nd of July. And we had an interesting discussion about this one, didn't we?
Yes.
I went
Yeah.
off piste. I felt I've written on the back the word creative. I felt, ugh. So I used peppercorn on a paintbrush. Peppercorn is dark grey, and the brush was, it was quite dry, but I just squiggled. And then quite a restricted palette of caravan green, Lettermore peat, and chalky violet. And I painted it in, and then when I felt I needed some darker, I did darken up the some of the lines, but some of them are really, I mean, there was a line there. It's a very dry line, but there we are. So
I would
yes.
say 2 of these are really stepping outside the box. The first one, where you know, you're going with the flow of the debris itself, and this one, which to me shouldn't really work at all, but it works beautifully.
I know it came near to really being a mess, but then I stepped away from it and came back and looked, and I thought, I think there's some mileage in this one.
Absolutely. This actually, I think, is my favorite. That the darkness of the inner spiral, where the line, that peppercorn line starts, just draws me right in. And the 2 shapes on the top, and I'm looking at this now again a second time, and it's still doing the same thing. That sort of flying saucer, and then the big circle. So it lifts me up and over the ironwork of the peppercorn line.
Okay.
And I am left flying above this wonderful landscape that reminds me of Provence. And in this expanse, and I've left the iron gatework behind. I don't know that I've experienced that in a painting before, but it just, you know, how you hear, well, I remember an old movie where the people stepped into a painting, you know, and it was
Yeah.
painting.
Yeah.
This does the same thing for me, and I would have never thought, again, using my intellect and what I know, that is not the solution I would have come up with to bring someone right into the landscape. And not that you intended it for a landscape.
No, not at all. Not at all. It just was making marks in the way that I have been in my sketchbook, and thinking, right, let's just see what I come up with.
Yeah.
And then, you know, going for it and stopping you know, filling those two bits in, but refraining from, because they needed to be there, didn't they, somehow?
They did. I mean, those are the bridge
Mm, mm,
over, or the transportation
mm,
over the gate into that other world.
mm,
There's really a feeling of being on one side of that surface of peppercorn, that plane
mm,
of peppercorn, and on the other side of it.
mm,
And it's comfortable in both. In one, I clearly feel that that's behind me. And in the other frame of mind, I'm clear that that plane is in front of me.
mm.
But because those little saucer things on the top and that space around them, the white around them, I can go back and forth quite easily.
Does this disrupt that?
Not at all. Not for me, it doesn't.
No.
No, in fact, I think it would be unsettling if it weren't there.
Mm,
It keeps me going back and forth.
mm,
I think if it weren't there, I would feel that I go to the other side, but can't get back. And I like the fact that I can go back and forth.
That's interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah,
And this is all in a little 4-inch
I know.
piece of paper.
But isn't this what art does for us? I mean,
Yeah,
create it, and I'm having this experience. You
yeah,
know, the viewer experiences whatever it is we create.
yeah.
And that experience can be completely different from what you intended, or maybe you had no intention,
No,
whatever.
I had no intention, just to play. I've written on the back here, take a brush for a walk. You know, the old Paul Clay thing, you know, take a line for a walk. I've written here, take a brush for a walk.
Well, you've
Because
taken
that's
me
where I want to
on a
go.
journey.
When I've got the workshop at the end of next week, the end of this week, sorry, the end of next week, I want to use all those sort of automatic drawings with I want to have a couple of paintbrushes and just see what happens with them. And so
Yeah,
this is a step towards that as well. So
definitely.
thank you for looking at those.
You're welcome. That was
There you
great.
go.
And I'm kind of glad that we got to go through that again, because
Yeah,
it
it's very
reinforced
interesting.
what the initial feelings were about it.
Can I say that is quite green?
It is quite green, but it's not like,
But it's not that yucky, even
no.
though it's a neutralized green. It's caravan green.
But look at the,
Interesting.
again, it's the distribution of the colors. Yeah. Very
Ugh.
different.
Ugh. Ugh. Yeah, I really like that as a color scheme, actually.
I do too.
And that is a new color scheme for me.
Yeah, it doesn't, I don't know that I can think of any paintings that you've done with that color scheme.
No. So thank you for that challenge, because that's opened quite a few little doors, hasn't it?
Oh, and I know I'm going to continue doing that challenge long after it's not a challenge anymore. And I may end up repeating some of these challenges, because I think that
Well, yeah, because you haven't you know, if you want to color map your emotions, feelings, moods, you don't just do it for 7 days or 14 days and finish.
no. And there's so much that I've experienced through this challenge that I never thought. Kind of an academic thing. Oh, what else can I present for this? And well, this would be kind of interesting. You know, I don't know how this is going to turn out. And I've been taken on many different journeys through this. Well, okay, thank you. That was great.
Well, thank you.
My pleasure.
So, you've got a sketchbook? You've got your
I do have the sketchbook. I have the sketchbook that I was going to present, and I probably won't go through the whole sketchbook. It's a little sketchbook. And I'm going to jump to the slides because that's a much better way to look at it. But what I realized last night after finding out that the recording had not recorded and we were going to do this again, I thought, well, sketchbook story time isn't necessarily, about one sketchbook that you go from front to back. It's really about how we use our sketchbooks, what we use them for, what we learn from them. And the sketchbook that I showed went through a lot of different phases because it was over a number of years. It's a small one that I would carry with me when I travel. And so what I've done is I've added some examples of the kinds of sketches that I did in it. And those sketches were also done in sketchbooks, in other sketchbooks. But, I would, depending on what size bag, what size pocket, I would grab different sketchbooks. So I am going to shift over to sharing my screen.
Oh, trumpet parts. Yes.
Okay. All right. So I will start up higher. All right. So this is the sketchbook. It's a little, well, I don't have to show it. It's about 4 by 6 in size. And it's a Coptic bound sketchbook where I made the signatures out of cutting up a watercolor painting that I had started by throwing different colors of paint down, mostly yellow and blue. And I never did anything with it. And I'm not sure why, but I cut it up and turned it into signatures to make this sketchbook. And these are, you can see in the background, the yellow is, and the blue in there was part of the original painting that I cut up. And I did this line drawing on top of it. And I have this to show across a little bit closer. So you can see I used a fountain pen, probably a platinum carbon ink fountain pen, and it was a plein air sketch. Then there was this very different sketch. Obviously, I was having a meal or something. This is in Frenchtown, New Jersey, waiting for a friend to join me. And this is a very different kind of sketch. I guess it took a while before she arrived because it would have taken some time to do this. This is another sketch of waiting where I arrived early at a friend's house and like 20 minutes. And I didn't want to be rude and knock on the door that early. So I stayed in my car and did this sketch of the view from, up her street. Again, just black fountain pen, line drawing. And had I had longer, I probably would have added color to it. I was on a trip up to Maine and with a friend, and we were visiting her sister-in-law and brother-in-law. And I often get up earlier than a lot of people, and I end up with a lot of kitchen drawings because I sit in their kitchen and either make some coffee and have it, or I just find kitchen stuff is really fun to draw. So this is the closer up of that. And if people come down, you can stop at any time, you just kind of keep going. So now this, and that's pretty blurry. Is that in focus for you now?
Yeah, that's good.
This was before I started making dollars. I started working with cells, different, different size rectangles. And this was a loaf of bread and a flask of wine. It was in somebody's kitchen again. And clearly somebody arrived and I stopped working on it before I added color. So now I've added these. This is not in the original sketchbook I was sharing, but these are all kitchen sketches that I pulled from other sketchbooks to add in. And
That's a nice color scheme.
I think so too. I like it. And I pulled these from old files that I haven't seen in a while. And I thought the same thing. I thought, I like that color scheme.
So I know I'm making you digress, but in terms of your 12 named color schemes, what's that one?
I would say it would be more green, yellow, orange, and red, violet. Analogous with with split complements, maybe. Maybe it's analogous with split complement. There is some yellow, so the red violet would be green yellow. Okay, the red violet is the complement to green yellow, and we have green yellow and we have red violets. This tends towards violet, but red violet. Then we have kind of yellow orange, which would be violet blue, blue violet. So you only have a little, you don't really have blue violet so much.
But it worked so well.
It does work well, and it does fall close to one of those. And again, like the color scheme idea is to give you a framework, like a skeleton.
Yeah.
And
break out of,
because for me, the magical paintings, the paintings that work when they shouldn't, are the ones that break the rule, but not so far away that they end up in the garbage. But they're the ones that put you on that edge of delight.
Yeah.
Whether it comes to shapes or colors or values, where you're really pushing the limit, but you need to know what the rules, or some people are very intuitive. I was not intuitive when it came to color. So it was helpful for me to learn the basics and then break away and know if it wasn't working, to know those basics, to ask the questions, why isn't it working?
Yeah.
So it's the more you work, the more years you invest in exploring all of this, and the more knowledge and practice, the more hours you put into it, some of it becomes easier and some of it becomes harder. And we've talked about this before too, where our knowledge can often get in the way. And can turn what would be a really strong, emotional, powerful expression, can make it be a little boring because it's almost too perfect in the way it works.
Yeah. Formulaic,
right? Perfect word. And I tend to dance away from the formulaic, but I needed to learn what the formulas were. And then it brought me more joy knowing that I was, it's kind of like exploring someplace that you're not supposed to explore. There's that bit of adventure in it. And then the delight when you discover a whole new world that you never would have seen unless you dared to make that change. This is another kitchen.
Oh, and that's another lovely color scheme.
Yes. Now
they're complementary, surely.
Yes, there's a little bit of struggle for me with the blues. This being a neutralized warm blue and this being such a cool blue. I'm a little put off by that.
Really?
Yeah. And I like the oranges and yellows with that blue, and I like them with this blue. Somehow in looking at this, I feel that I need some spot somewhere. It doesn't have to be big, maybe, that would bring these together more. But the great thing about sketchbooks is that you look at this and you say, okay, going back to Sally Hurst, is it asking me any questions? Yes, that's the first question it asks me. Do those blues, now the blues are combined here and they work quite well.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a question of dominance. Is there too much of this? Is it because of the color, or is it because I have too much of this that it's fighting for attention? And maybe if I had some darks in here to balance out some of these, that may balance it out too. I'm not sure. Again, the more you know, the more the better questions you can ask about something being a little unsettling. You know, what would a spot of red right over here do?
Well, yeah, red is your,
Red is my fix-all, but
Yeah.
just in tiny amounts,
yeah, yeah.
and that might do it. You know, might be the kind of thing where I would, although I never take the time to do this, you know, I just go and do something else. But to take this file and bring it into Photoshop and make a little shape, a tiny little shape red to see what happens. That could be interesting.
Just cut a little piece of red and put it on.
Yeah. What I like about the blue, this light, is that it brings so much light into the painting.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so that's Kathleen's kitchen in Maine. Here's my cupboard clutter. It's a Dala where I just use red and black, love red and black, and I was just playing with all the different herb containers that I have, and it I just love playing with that. This too is a kitchen sketch.
Wow.
These are obviously we have a lot of knife holders in our kitchen.
Yeah.
And this big is a watering pitcher to water.
Okay. Yeah.
But I like this color scheme too. I like the yellow, green, and the red violet. Like a lot. And then you've got this other green, that a neutralized green that tends towards a blue green, and that pink, you know. The other thing about color schemes that I think is important is that a color scheme doesn't mean it includes everything, all the colors in the painting. This pink is, you know, it does go towards the analogous, the pink and the blues and all that, but it doesn't have to. Like, you can have spots of color that don't belong within your color scheme, and if they're really small and the proportion is small, that's fine. And I encourage people to do that too. I think I mentioned yesterday that to look at Klimt and Vuillard, from whom I learned so much about these little specks of color that you don't expect to be there, but they enliven. You know, it's like salt in food. You know, it just brings to life some of the flavor. Well, little spots of color do that too, and you don't have to fret over whether a spot of yellow, you know, if you add a spot of yellow, is that in your color scheme? I mean, I rarely, except when I played the color scheme game to learn more about color, I don't do a painting based on the color scheme. You know, I do in my sketchbooks to play with it and learn more, but in real life, in my studio or en plein air, you know, I don't do that at all. I just do the practice of working with color schemes so that I have that to tap into when I'm working differently. Okay, this too was
red and green.
red and green, my least favorite, but this one I didn't mind too much because it's yellow green. It's not that
yellow green. Yeah.
and because the reason I don't like Kelly green and red together is because of the exact same value.
Yeah.
But here I've got the red, which is, I think of cadmium red light as being really light because it's bright, especially if you put it against black, but it's really a pretty dark value. And when you put it against yellow green, that works pretty well. So this doesn't look like a kitchen scene, but it is. It's my fountain pen on the kitchen counter, and here are bananas. Okay, not sure what anything else is, but
it was like a sandwich. It looks like layers in a sandwich.
Down here does, and here I'm not sure what it is, but it was labeled as a kitchen scene. Another kitchen scene, just line drawing. Another kitchen scene. This is my son's kitchen when he lived in Mountain View, and this is a kitchen scene. So you know, kitchens can offer an awful lot, and these were all when I was. Well, a few are my own home, but most of these are from visiting. This was in Seattle, visiting my sister. And it just is, it's so good to have a sketchbook with you all the time. Sketchbook, a fountain pen, and a little Altoid tin with paints.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, take advantage of those opportunities. This is another, my son sitting at his counter. That's the same fan that you saw here.
Yeah.
And we were
Okay.
intensely working on editing video.
Mm,
This is another of my cupboard clutter.
mm,
And there's another cupboard clutter, really fun to do, like dip pen and ink and splashing things around. It was before I added the color,
mm.
more cupboard clutter. Kitchen sink. This is in Liverpool at the hostel. Again, way too early to go anywhere. So I sat having coffee and drawing other people's dirty dishes or clean dishes. Okay, I'm going to skip down because we're running out of time and I wanted to show the scribble drawings. Okay, squiggle. So this is multiple continuous lines. And I have this little video that I found. Oh, let me see what this one is. This is just showing. This is also in that same Emergicare that I flipped through. All right, here
Oh,
is a bit
wow.
about squiggle line drawings.
That was amazing.
I thought it was helpful to show
Yeah,
these are made.
fantastic. That start off when you were just going all over the page.
Yep.
Amazing.
And that's how I
Oh,
do
wow.
these. And then I just build them
Oh,
up.
wow. Good gracious. Goodness me. They are amazing.
They take forever.
Ever. Yeah. Where you can see that. Mm. Mm. Gorgeous.
This is in graphite pencil.
Mm.
Same thing, a squiggle.
Mm. Mm. So have you got a sketchbook with just squiggle drawings in, or are these taken from all over the place?
They're taken from all over the place. Which is why I thought it was good to pull them together to show
Mm.
them. Okay, so, and then I have separate ones, but we don't need to look at that. Let me see. Oh, okay. So I'm gonna end it there. Let me stop sharing. And the other thing, I could have gone back to that I found when I was looking through this, trying to make today a little bit different from yesterday, is just as I shared multiple squiggle drawings over time,
Mm.
I next week, unless somebody else has a lot to share, and I would always prefer you or someone else to
Mm.
share.
I won't be there next Monday.
Oh, right. Well, okay. So more than likely I'll be by myself, and or possibly Christy will be there. I'm not sure. I will be sharing many of the sketches that I've created while waiting.
Oh, right.
While
Okay.
waiting, you know,
At airports, at train stations,
airports,
at
train
hospitals.
stations, hospitals, waiting for files to upload, waiting, waiting for the water to boil. Wait, there's so many times when people say, I just don't have time to sketch.
Mm,
Have
mm.
so much time to sketch. As
Yeah,
long as we
yeah.
have a little tin of watercolor, a water brush, a fountain pen, and a small sketchbook with us, which
Mm,
isn't a lot.
mm,
There are so many times that we're waiting
mm,
in, doctors, waiting in the hospital when I would bring my dad to the hospital for one reason or the other, as he got older.
mm.
So I will be going over a lot of waiting sketches.
I shall watch the recording, definitely.
So there we go. So I think that we covered a lot of what we,
Yeah, and some new things.
yes.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Thank
All
you.
right. Well, and I wish you well this week. Congratulations on being part of this fun exhibit with PP22.
Yeah.
And I just wish everyone great success and good times together, as I know you will have.
Mm, mm.
All
Thank
right.
you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
See you again soon, and I'll be in touch with everyone else who tunes in next Monday.
Yeah,
Thank
great.
you. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.